Shavua Tov. This is Motzei Shabbat, Parshat Bo, 5776. I attended 2 funerals this week, and they were very painful and but very inspiring experiences, and I wanted to share a little bit from what I took away from those levayas, those funerals. The first was Irving Ich Seidel, Zichrono Livracha, here in Beth Aaron, Teaneck, New Jersey. Ich had, I remember when he was healthy, he was just a very, very sweet person who never had a bad word to say about anybody. He always was ready to help with anything. And he suffered from ALS, becoming completely debilitated. And Rabbi Rothwax in the Hesped recounted an incident where he was sitting with Ich at his bedside at a time when Ich could not speak anymore. And yet, as he was a great teacher, and he managed to teach an important lesson without any words. It took a long time, but Rabbi Rothwax, to his credit, was a good student. He was able to get it. Ich somehow indicated the box of tissues, which he had hours and hours to contemplate as he was trapped inside of his body. And Rabbi Rothwax understood, and he brought him the box of tissues. He wanted tissue. Ich didn't want a tissue. So, again, the lesson went on. Eventually, Rabbi Rothwax figured out what he wanted to teach him. That life is like a box of tissues. The lesson of the tissue box, a person opens up a box of tissues, and it's full. And a person thinks it'll last forever. And so people pull out tissue, and people bring out 2, 3, 4, 5 at a time. They wipe their nose once, and they throw it all in the garbage. People don't realize they're using, they're expending, they're consuming, and there's a limit. So, to relate to every minute of life with preciousness and value. And Ich brought in his life a tremendous focus on chesed, on kindness. He was a loving teacher. He gave himself to his students, whether they were in public school, whether they were in Hebrew school, and he looked to give. And he did it with great joy and love. And he paid attention to what mattered to the other person. Whether it was an adult who needed a ride, he was out there to give him the ride. Whether it was a child, particularly his grandchildren, where he would attend to every little detail of what was important to them. What was a big accomplishment. They could roll the ball across the floor. That became a great accomplishment. And he shared in that joy. He almost, maybe with who knows, with a premonition, he cared for an individual, I believe here in Teaneck, who also suffered years ago from extreme debilitation, and he was the best caregiver. And even when and this is such a lesson that made a very big impression on me, that even when he was disabled, he was still coming to shul. And he wanted to be Me'asara Rishonim, from the first 10 to be in shul. But not just like a minute to 8, to whatever. He would, so the idea to daven is to to shul as early as possible and before the start of the minyan. At least the 10 minutes beforehand. So the early minyan. That really made a big impression on me. A second funeral I attended this week was that of 21-year-old Daniela Nechama Mafson, Zichrono Livracha, who was a graduate of Ramaz, where I teach. And she was just one of the most extraordinary young women to pass through the doors of Ramaz. She became a real tzadikista, a really righteous woman. She took it upon herself to daven 3 times a day, not by anybody's urging her, or didn't make a show of it. When she decided she's only going to wear skirts, it was her private decision. So she was tzniusdik about her tznius. She was private about her modesty. And she seems to have come into this world just to do chesed, kindness, and bring happiness to people. And wherever she went, she just lit up the world. And I think that she may have done more chesed in a year of her life than most of us do in a lifetime. It was recounted at the funeral that when she was 2.5 years old and her baby brother was born, she said to her mother, "Mommy, I see you're very busy with the new baby. I'll put myself to bed." And she did small things and great things. And it's hard to say which is which sometimes, but she worked with children who had cancer. She stayed up all night in the hospital with a child who was in hospital so that her father, who was taking care of her, could get some sleep. And then she went to school the next morning to Barnard. She was the head of the Chesed committee at Ramaz. For years, she worked every week with an autistic child, caring for and working with him. She organized hundreds of students in New York City to help children in need. It was she died on the way back from a mission of kindness in Honduras. She volunteered extensively in Israel and distinguished herself as an extraordinary caregiver. And she brought the greatness of Jewish love and kindness to other places in the world. Beyond asking, how can I help, which is such an important question, she looked for how she could help. The Rambam, Maimonides, says in the Laws of Tzedakah that there are 8 levels of Tzedakah. Shmone ma'alot yesh b'tzedakah zu l'mala mizu. The highest level is finding someone a job, teaching them how to basically take care of themselves so they don't become a needy person. And it seems to me that this is something that she also accomplished in her missions. And another level is responding to someone when they ask for help. But a higher level is anticipating another person's need. Coming into a situation or looking for a situation, where could I make a difference? Where can I help? Where do people need assistance? This is such an extraordinary, is a mindset. as opposed to someone who's looking to relieve themselves of responsibilities. She was a person who was looking for, what else can I do? One of the speakers reflected that chesed, kindness, is godliness. Olam chesed yibaneh. God built the world in the sense of his giving. And then when we give, we are acting in a godly way. So Rav Dessler, of blessed memory, emphasized, and one of the most important pieces of Musar of the 20th century, in the Kunshus HaChesed, a person is either a giver or a taker. And to be a giver means to achieve one's godly potential. And she really thought out what she wanted to do with her life. What was she going to do with her time on this earth? I remember hearing it said once that some people live 1 year in 70, and others live 70 years in 1. She lived a very rich, giving life. The Gemara says, "Gedolim tzadikim b'mitatan yoter b'chayeihen." Righteous people are greater in their death than in their lifetime. There were maybe 2,000 people at that funeral, and even people like myself who did not really know her were deeply moved. She accomplished more in her passing than she did in her life, because now she's inspired thousands to do something to follow in her footsteps. May the memory of Yitzchak Meir Zaidel, Zichron Livracha, and Daniela Nechama Mafsin, Zichron Livracha, be an inspiration to us that we seek to achieve our godly potential in this world. Shavua Tov, Al Mavdil Ben Kol